welcome Pete Cashmore, founder and CEO of Mashable, United Nations Youth Envoy, Jayathma Wickramanayake, Aasif Mandvi, actor and writer, and Richard Curtis, screenwriter, director, and SDG advocate.
All right. There we go. Hello, very, very good to see you here. We've got a frightening thing in front of me which tells me that I'm already 1 3/4 minutes over. Which does seem,
you're wasting a lot of time walking on there.
Does seem a little bit unfair.
I'm just going to do this. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I got you.
Can we get a wave going?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
I was actually going to sing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's lovely to be here at the Social Good Summit. There are quite a few frightening things during the course of this week, and I think of this as the friendly, not frightening one. The most frightening thing is whether I'm going to pronounce your name right.
Try that.
I think. I used to write films to make Hugh Grant rich and unhappy. I've succeeded 100% in certainly making him unhappy, but now I spend most of my time making 3-minute films about the global goals because trying to make the world better is more important than trying to observe posh people getting their ends away. So I'm going to just show you a little film that we've made just to start you off, remind you about the goals and about the one thing that we've all got in common. So there we go. So let's start with the obvious big question. Aasif, Trevor Noah or Jon Stewart? Nicer guy.
I am contractually obligated to say that I hate both of them.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard Trevor Noah's nicer in private. So we're now 2 years into the goals, and I'm here to sort of ask these three what we can do to accelerate progress towards them. Pete, when I Googled you, I've Googled everyone, it said you had a passion for sharing how web tools and social networks were transforming human interactions and reshaping cultures. And also that you had the third most extraordinary hairstyle in New York. How do you think that the digital world is actually sort of affecting the achievement of the goals? Where's it doing well? Where's it doing badly?
So look, I think it comes back to what Henry just said. I mean, we're now in the 8th year of the Social Good Summit, and we founded the Social Good Summit with the idea that technology could help us achieve the global goals, could help us just take that power we have as individuals, and we're all being empowered by social media, and use it beyond ourselves to better the world, not just about self-promotion, but about what can I do in my community. We're now a connected world. We have a responsibility. And I think it has proven beyond doubt that you can spread a message through social. When we started, there was a lot of doubt about whether tweeting about something would ever get covered. Could it ever become a news story? Could it ever become a movement? I think, as Henry just said, we've seen that undoubtedly for good and for not so good messages that people want to spread. Everyone is empowered now. And I think the moment we're in now is about how do we use that power that we all have now? We started this with the idea, there's the UN, it's a closed-off conversation, we're going to open it up. We've had huge success in that. We now reach 200 million people every year. We do 1.7 billion impressions. This live stream goes around the world in 7 languages. We can reach a lot of people, but what are we filling the airwaves with now? And I think for us, it's really about deciding how do we use technology. The future is not made yet. It's not fated in any way. So we can choose to use that power that we all have in the room to make a difference, to help other causes, or we can decide to, look inward, and we can decide to live in fear and spread that message. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing playing out now. There's no doubt that technology empowers everyone. Yeah. And what are we going to do now? We have that in our hands. It's really real now. We're all empowered. And sometimes we look at that and say, wow, look at the amount of energy here. Look at the amount of influence we have. And what are we going to do with that? And that's really, I think, the decision we have to make about technology is, it's completely a neutral platform, so how are we going to use it? Are we going to use it for positivity and change? Or are we going to kind of close ourselves off, use it to spread negativity? Because it's just as good at both of those things.
Jayathma, what's your sense of what you're seeing young people doing which actually makes genuine change, rather than noise change?
No, definitely. I mean, we can't really at this point distinguish young people and goals, right? It's half of the world's population right now is young people, and in some countries, especially in the south, in countries like Somalia, the youth population is about 81%. So there's no thing as goals on citizens and goals on young people. It's goals and young people. So young people are actually taking the charge, taking the lead. In my missions to different countries in the world, and also in my work in Sri Lanka as a youth activist, I've seen young people bringing in disruptive ideas. They're disrupting businesses, entertainment, climate change innovations, health sector, education. Young people are really leading the charge, and it's no longer a question about if we should let young people take the leadership. I think they're already taking the leadership. It's the question if the rest of the world can keep up with them. And young people are coming in with these new ideas, and the biggest challenges they face is one in terms of resource mobilization and financing, and the other one is platforms and opportunities for them to share these new ideas. And I think that's where summits like the Social Good Summit comes into place, where it provides an excellent opportunity to, not just for who is present in this room, but for those who are watching us online, for millions of people to know that they are not alone in this fight. There are millions of other young people who are in this fight with them together. Yeah,
I mean, I always think one of the things about the goals is, instead of us now who are trying to change things saying, wouldn't it be nice if you change things, you actually are now saying to all the politicians in the world, you promised. We're actually making you, keep your word. In terms of, Aasif, where are you seeing some optimism? There are lots of things to be pessimistic about.
Yes.
Do you feel, as you look out over, let's say, particularly the USA, because one of the great things about the goals is they promise that they will be applied here, do you see in your work things where you think people's pressure, people's use of things online, but people's use of TV are really making a difference?
I think that, Especially here in this country, I think we have an administration right now that is using sort of the clown antics of our president to distract us often from a lot of these major goals. And I think the optimism lies in the area of people keeping their finger on the thing, their foot on the gas in terms of all of these major issues like poverty and global warming and stuff like that. And I think that what we end up getting distracted a lot with is that the First Lady wore high heels in Houston, and this is where I think the media plays a huge role in continually keeping the pressure on those larger issues and those global issues that we're dealing with, as opposed to going back to social media. And Twitter is a huge influence, and our president uses it better than anyone, but often uses it to distract us from what's really going on.
So how can we do that? Is there any sort of venue where something as serious as what the goals are dealing with can get as much attention as a Kardashian?
Well, it's all about exposure.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Literally.
Look, we are, at the end of the day, I think we're always going to gravitate towards the shiniest thing. As human beings, we go right for the thing that, is shiny and dazzly. And so how do we take these initiatives and these goals and package them in a way that, it's happening already, like you said, but I think, in terms of social media, in terms of this kind of instant where we have like a 30-second attention span on a lot of these things. We don't deep dive into a lot of these issues. Like most of us are scrolling through Facebook throughout the course of the day and hitting the things that are the most provocative and the most sensational, and those are the things we read. I do it myself, and so how do we take, that is the question, things like this is one way to do it, but how do you take these large global issues and present them in a way that, put them out there in a way that people are clicking on it and listening to it.
And I think that's the challenge. And I have to say, I think it's a very good time, because I think there are always waves. And I think that one of the things about the tricky things in the world at the moment is that it is making a generation of young people think, I better do something. I can't just sit by now. I've certainly noticed that in the young people I know, that they are, some of whom my girlfriend gave birth to, that they are saying it's really time to step up to the plate, to actually accept that by believing the things that you believe in, you really are an activist. Let me talk for a second just about the UN and the power of the UN and the power of the huge giants, Facebook and everyone. Do you think that if you were the UN and you were going to Silicon Valley, do you think there are big things they should ask those people to do to actually move themselves towards social purpose? Because they aren't neutral. There was a time when TV was thought to be neutral, and then TV took on huge responsibilities with regard to news and with regard to observing things. And you get the BBC and places like that have an absolute duty of care. What do you think the UN should be saying to Zuckerberg and Cook?
So I think there's a couple things on that. I think one thing is the role of business in our world has changed. And it used to be great business in the 80s to have no opinion on anything and to not offend any of our customers. I think now we see on social media a level of accountability of businesses. If they say, we're inclusive, we're all about diversity, we're all about doing good in the world, and they don't always live up to that, then they're highly accountable. And you're actually seeing business sort of lead the charge. On climate, for instance, the businesses are stepping up and saying, we want to be at the forefront of this. This is great for us. This is great for hiring. And the scale and power of these are
promising to be carbon neutral, actually building wind farms.
And these are global companies, many of which are, they act like states. They're huge. And I think that that's going to lead to many, many questions going forward. But I think when you speak to the platforms, it's about starting to understand. I mean, I come from that background of this tech optimism of, I was sitting in my bedroom writing a blog, I suddenly reaching millions of people. I'm like, this stuff's great. It can empower you. You can empower other people. And I think there is a level of understanding that has to happen about how your tools are being used and to show people this is some of the impact for good and this is some of the impact that we need to limit. So I think speaking to the platforms, I also think speaking to technologists beyond social. I mean, we talk about how can these issues get buzz. Whenever we cover Elon Musk, it's one of the biggest stories on Mashable. And people are excited about electric cars. They're cool. He has a great story. And by the way, what they're really getting excited about is doing a better job for the climate. And it's actually a status symbol to go out and say, yeah, I bought a Tesla. So I think both the platforms and talking about responsibility with them, and they're really waking up to it, but also the technologists who are improving other areas, tackling the climate goals, health, education. I mean, in every single area, there's excitement about innovation and how it can improve, how technology can improve our ability to reach the goals.
Well, I think that's, so we have to finish soon. I've gone into the red, but I'm a great optimist, as you will see by the films I've written. By the way, you got married 3 weeks ago, you see? Now, who'd have thought it? I saw him on television for years and thought, no way, he'll ever get a girlfriend. And yet, it all turned out groovy. So, I mean, I do think there are huge causes for optimism. I do think the engagement of business is amazing. I think that the engagement of young people is extraordinary. I think the potential power online is extraordinary. It just has to be duly applied. So I'm going to ask one last question, so before I get into trouble, just very quickly, just one thing that you think would accelerate movement towards the goals, the one most needed thing that these guys can go out and achieve.
No, definitely. There's something that I've been in the UN for only 2 months. And in these internal meetings, we always talk about accountability and for the need for governments to step up and report back on the progress of their SDGs. But I think we should equally create a movement in society where citizens demand governments to deliver on these goals. Because at the end of the day, these are our goals. And our representatives should be accountable for the implementation of these goals for the betterment of our community. So I would really encourage everyone to hold your governments accountable, write a letter to your president, write a letter to your cabinet, go on a march, just hold them accountable to really deliver on these goals before it's too late.
There we go. I think I might stop there, but I think one of the good things about the goals is a deadline. We all love a deadline, and I do think, no, but seriously, we did a campaign called Make Poverty History in 2005 to push the MDGs, and look, we're nearly at 2020. So I think there isn't a moment to spare. So I'm glad you're just taking today off to hang around and have a good time. But if you could all leap into action tomorrow for the global goals, that would be great. Thank you very much, very much.